Welcome to the May 2nd meeting of the Dover-Sherborn Regional School Committee. My name is Maggie Sharon, and I call this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. Information on how to join our school committee meetings and meeting agendas are posted on the Dover-Sherborn District website. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Our first item on our agenda is public comments, and I know because some folks notified me before that there are definitely public comments about, I think, CPR, so I'm going to go ahead and read the public comment preamble. Community comments are an opportunity for members of our community to be heard. We respectfully request that you make your comments brief, no more than 3 minutes. And tonight, because I think we're probably going to have a multitude, I am going to hold to that 3-minute limit for each person, and that you move the discussion forward by adding new information. Please try to avoid repeating points that have already been made. We have also opened a Zoom link, great, for members of the community to make comments, even if it is not possible or preferable for them to join us in person. If you would like to speak, please virtually or in person raise your hand and wait to be called on. When you speak, please begin by stating your name and whether you live in Dover, Sherborn, Boston, or are a DS community member in another way. Community comments are an opportunity for the school committee to listen to members of the community. It is not a forum for us to answer questions or to engage in a debate. Once the public comment section of our meeting has been concluded, we will move on to other business, and unsolicited comments from the community will no longer be permitted. This is standard operating procedure in school committee meetings across our 3 districts. All right. I know I got some requests earlier this evening for folks to speak on the topic of CPR as a high school requirement. I'm suspecting we probably have people with other things that they might like to speak about. Is it all right if we do CPR people first? Is there anyone who has an objection to that? Because I don't want to.
The students have homework, and the chief has to keep us safe.
Okay. So. All right. So if there is anyone here who would like to make a comment for 3 minutes or less on CPR as a high school requirement, I would love to raise your hand. Yes. Sarah. Yes. So you say like your name and your address, Dover-Sherborn, or whatever else is your role here, and what your comment is.
Is somebody timing?
And yes, could someone time for me? Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Sarah O'Connell. I'm a resident of Sherborn, 101 Farm Road, and a parent of both a 2021 graduate and a member of the class of 2023. I'm joined this evening by public safety officials, other parents, and student members of the American Red Cross Club. We're here today asking that the committee add CPR and AED training as a graduation requirement. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 71, Section 1, requires the teaching of fire safety, burn safety, first aid, and CPR as part of the comprehensive health curriculum. Learning Standard Component 9.19 stipulates that by the end of grade 12, through the study of emergency intervention, students will demonstrate first aid for stings, bites, broken bones, bleeding, choking, shock, poisoning, burns, and cardiac arrest. According to the Dover-Sherborn 2022-23 programs of studies, CPR, first aid, and AED certification is a quarterly elective module available to students in grades 10 through 12. It is possible for a student to choose 5 of 20 available elective modules, which do not include this life-saving knowledge, skills, and abilities. Across the country, there are numerous open source reports of students who have successfully used CPR to resuscitate either loved ones or strangers. As a certified emergency medical technician, I know that by providing timely, coordinated care that includes early recognition and activation of the emergency response system, early CPR, rapid defibrillation, and advanced life support, it is possible to improve the survival rate for sudden cardiac arrest. Since 2012, the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has required each school to submit an medical emergency response plan to DESE for approval every 3 years. Elements of that response plan include CPR and first aid training for staff and specifying the location of automated external defibrillators accessible during both instructional and after-hour activities. With advances in public access defibrillation programs, AEDs are immediately available for use by lay bystanders in numerous public locations, including houses of worship, municipal buildings, airports, shopping malls, and other places of assembly. According to a policy evidence assessment report on public access to fibrillation by the CDC, schools are uniquely positioned to provide CPR and AED training, which could directly benefit athletes, students, staff, and visitors within the school as well as the larger community. Based on the research, we are urging you to adjust the graduation requirements, starting with the class of 2024, to include cardiopulmonary resuscitation training. We would be happy to work with curriculum coordinators and other district officials to brainstorm how this important skill can be taught to students before they receive their diploma.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. Are there other community comments on the topic of CPR? Chief.
Thank you. Zach,
And I'm not picking him over students. It's just like we could have fires, and I want him to go back to work. Sorry.
Thank you. Zach Ford, I'm the fire chief in Sherborn. I'm here to express my support for the CPR measure. I also spoke with Chief Lutazzi from the Dover Fire Department, and he completely supports this proposal as well. I think if it can be done, the class of 2024 would be a great start for DS to teach students CPR. I know personally for me, the best CPR save that I've been involved with in my career happened at a high school on a field in the back of the school. I think that I would be really proud if DS could be a leader in the Commonwealth when it comes to this issue. I think it's an important issue, and I think it would be really great to see our students graduate from this campus being CPR certified, because it can certainly save a life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you.
Student, and then I think Mr. McGuire. Yes, hi.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jim McStravick. I live in Sherborn, Mass. I'm a junior at Dover-Sherborn High School and the current president of the school's Dover-Sherborn Red Cross Club. I speak before you today to express my advocacy for an idea that I believe can make a positive change in our community, making CPR graduation for all high school students. Cardiac arrest is a leading cause of death worldwide, claiming the death of approximately 5 million people every year. CPR is the first step of action to help increase a victim's chances of survival. Between 4 and 6 minutes after the heart stops beating, brain death occurs. CPR helps keep blood flowing and provides oxygen to the brain and other important organs. It gives the victim a better chance of a full recovery. As you know, this January, in a crucial late-season game between the Buffalo Bills and Cincinnati Bengals, Bills safety Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field after suffering sudden cardiac arrest. Per NFL rules, each organization is required to have an emergency action plan for cases of severe trauma. This plan was immediately put into effect following the collapse. Damar Hamlin was given CPR on the field and promptly transported to local hospitals, where he continued to be in critical condition. Today, Damar Hamlin is cleared to resume all football activities thanks to the trained first responders who kept him alive on the field. They use CPR. By teaching CPR to students at DS, we can build a student body that is able to step in and help with emergency situations like these. Students will feel secure in the knowledge that they could intervene in a crisis situation. On top of its potential to save lives, learning CPR can give students a sense of responsibility and achievement. This certification will allow students to learn more about the human body and the importance of maintaining good health. Common concerns about CPR certification may include time and resources. Fortunately, CPR certification can be delivered in a matter of hours. And as a matter of fact, many current high school students have already previously studied CPR in 8th grade health class. As for resources, the American Heart Association and Red Cross provide resources to support schools in this process. As the president of the Dover-Sherborn High School American Red Cross Club, I speak on behalf of our leadership team to commit our time and energy to support the certification process. I urge you all to seriously consider making CPR certification a graduation requirement for students at our high school. It will provide students with life-saving skills, making the school a safer place, and give students the training to use these skills in real-life situations. On behalf of the Dover-Sherborn Red Cross Club, I thank you all for your time.
Thank you, sir. Other comments, Mr. McGuire, I think, and then we'll go back to students.
I'm not going to be anywhere near as eloquent. Ed McGuire, Cooling Street, Sherborn. I run the youth basketball program, doing it for 15 years. Thankfully, we've never had an issue. But, you know, if we do, I'm in the gym on a Sunday and something happens, I have no idea if anybody in the bleachers is CPR certified. I do hire high school kids to like run the clock and the scoreboard. And if they were certified, that could be a game changer.
Thank you, sir. Hi, I think you were next.
My name is Cora Rooney. I live at 21 Granville Drive, Dover, Massachusetts, and I am a current junior at Dover-Sherborn High School. We are all ticking time bombs. Whether or not you choose to agree with this catchy phrase or feel that it is inappropriate that those words just came out of my mouth, I believe that this statement is true. Anything can happen to any one of us at any given time, most likely when you least expect it. CPR, or cardiopulmonary resuscitation, is an emergency life-saving procedure performed when the heart stops beating. Immediate CPR can double or triple chances of survival after cardiac arrest. This summer, I will start a lifeguard job at my local beach in Rhode Island. As part of the job requirements, I needed to complete the CPR and AED training course. And before taking this class, I assumed I had a pretty good understanding of how CPR was to be performed. I was quickly proven wrong. Learned different approaches for a broad range of ages and body sizes, tiny infants to obese adults, and the specifics of the chest compression depths and timing of each breath. CPR is an action that needs to be performed in a timely fashion to successfully save a life. Although CPR seems quite simple, it is a very precise series of actions which can be safely executed by a calm and properly trained individual. Children and young adults may appear healthy and thriving to the unsuspected observer. However, there are many people with undiagnosed conditions such as cancer, hypertension, obesity, and many teenagers who may once a day experiment with drugs and alcohol, and others who will require psychiatric medical therapies. As we learn to drive in the towns of Dover and Sherborn, we may cause an accident. Anyone sitting here today, my classmates, DS teachers and administrators, or DS coaches, could suffer an unexpected cardiac arrest, which is extremely dangerous and often deadly. If this occurs, time is of the essence, so precise and quick action is necessary to save a life. Some educators and my own classmates may grumble at the thought of adding another graduation requirement to the already rigorous course load for our students. However, CPR can easily be incorporated into class schedules, such as physical education or health. A CPR refresher can be repeated each year for extra credit. CPR is a skill that will last us a lifetime. CPR has been proven to save lives when performed efficiently and properly on sports fields, on ski slopes, in parking lots, and grocery stores. Please allow each student to gain a unique skill which they will carry on for life. Please consider the addition of CPR training as a new graduation requirement at Dover-Sherborn High School. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Hi, Addie Mae Weiss.
Hi. Are you speaking on CPR?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Sorry.
No problem.
I have children in middle school and high school. Just two things. One, probably most of us have seen the AED devices, and they're pretty intimidating, and we'd want people to use them. And having gone through the course, and I think all of you probably have at some point in your life, going through the course a couple times is really useful to ensuring you'll respond. And our children are all extremely busy, and we, as a school and a community, really pride ourselves on having engaged students, which means that they do a lot of charity work and they do a lot of outreach, and they're involved with summer jobs. And a lot of those positions require this training, so having a way for them to get this training during the school year is extremely beneficial for everyone's mental health when we're trying to cram everything else into the school year. So I think it's a wonderful idea. I really hope it can be possible, and I'd love it to be, the more that it becomes the norm, the more comfortable everybody is with it. So.
Thank you. Are there any community comments on the Zoom for CPR? Okay, I don't think so. Any other community comments for CPR? All right, Community comments on other topics. Tracy?
There should be just about 3 minutes. My name is Tracy Mannion, and I know most of you. I've been a lifelong resident of Dover, and I'm a graduate of Dover-Sherborn. I've sat at the table with many of you as a member of the Regional School Committee, as well as serving for many years on the board of a local preschool. These words are my own and not in collaboration with any others. If any of you know me at all, you know it takes a lot to get me upset. And as a result of how upset I am over recent comments, I need to read this to make sure I make myself extremely clear. The first time I became very upset with the school system was when my son was horrifically bullied at Chickering by more than one child. And I felt that not enough was being done to protect him. On one occasion, my child was knocked to the ground, kicked in the face and head, and has had his tooth kicked out. He was sent home on the bus that day with not one phone call to me. And I have a doctorate in nursing. I should have known about this. That year, I spoke about his situation at one of these meetings. To this day, I have parents ask me how he's doing now, since I had to remove him for both his physical and psychological safety from this system that I graduated from. This is now the second time I'm upset with what I'm seeing regarding our schools. I watched last week's joint school committee meeting and heard several parents speak up. Having sat where you are, all sitting, and being in the role as a public servant, I realize we may face public scrutiny for our opinions, views, or performance. I also realize that parents as taxpayers have every right to voice their opinions. However, what I witnessed last week at the joint school committee meeting was one parent turning to other parents and saying, quote, "If you disagree with something, pull your kid out." This is not the first time I've heard this recently, and it disgusts me. I personally have heard the equivalent of this statement 3 times in the last couple of months, coming both internally from the school and externally. This type of statement is the antithesis of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Groupthink is not diversity, and it's exclusionary to people with other opinions. True diversity includes respect for people with different backgrounds and opinions. If we teach our children only to admire one way of thinking, what will happen with them in the future? If their manager or in-laws, perhaps, have differing opinions or belief systems, how will the children fare? Unless the children are a danger to themselves or others, they should not be forced out. Telling someone to remove their child or insinuating they need to find a private school for their child is not inclusion. It is exclusion at its finest, and the exclusion of our most prized citizens, who are our children. I ask all of you sitting school committee members, and especially administration, to denounce this type of exclusionary behavior as soon as you hear it. Denounce exclusionary and divisive comments requesting children be removed from our public school community. I will be watching for this. My hand was forced to remove my child, and it was not a choice I thought I would ever have to make. My child has been excluded from this public school community. I'm not happy about it, and it's a very difficult thing for a family or a child to go through. So throwing around comments that some children should be pulled out because of their family's beliefs is not being equitable, it's not being inclusionary, and it's not being kind. If I had been sitting in that chair again, I would have said something. So Bethel School Committee members, if you'd like to discuss this situation with me further, please reach out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. Yes.
Good evening. Marianna Stelberger, 36 Main Street, Dover. And I want to address community comments. Fellow taxpayer citizens use community comments to share opinions and make suggestions that also reflect the feelings of other citizens. But what happens next? Nothing that I can see. It goes to the written record and to never be addressed again. And I don't think it's fair. We talk here about things and we would like to hear some responses. And so why not include all community comments and an agenda item on a future meeting for discussion or debate? I feel that fellow citizens, have a right to know how the elected committee members stand on topics and matters related to this committee. So please consider this change to make this committee more transparent for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Other community comments? Hi.
My name is Renee Foster. I've been a resident of Dover-Sherborn community for over 46 years. I'm a graduate of Dover-Sherborn along with 3 of my children. My youngest child is still currently in the DS regional system. My history and experience with the school system is extensive. In listening to the recent school committee meetings, there's a lot of repetitious talk on threats and use of the term hate speech, which is repeated and reinforced. While I recognize and certainly am in no way attempting to minimize the possibility of an active shooter in the school, there is fixated attention on teaching kids how to hold direct pressure on wounds in the event of a school shooting, while ignoring the incident and damaging effects of the daily immediate threats to our children. Things such as vaping and narcotics. Vaping is now known to cause 3 times the damage of smoking, with 1 out of every 10 middle school and high school kids engaging in this activity regularly. Based on this, I would think that the health and physical well-being of our students would be a priority. It should also concern all of you to know that the prevalence of narcotics and fentanyl abuse and deaths has not escaped our community. It is here. The likelihood and probability of our children being affected by these immediate dangers is statistically far greater than any other. I can confidently say, from both personal experience as a parent and also having been a paramedic in this town for 30 years, we have a problem. You've stated all of this work is being done to increase the security of our schools and protect our children, with the emphasis being on outside threats. This hyper-focused emphasis on closing down the campus while beefing up security measures has skewed the bigger picture, giving the impression that our biggest threat would be from an outside source. Myself, along with many others, have been privy to information which suggests that any nefarious force that potentially poses a threat to the safety of our children and our schools would most likely come from within our own walls. Specific individuals have been identified. Think about that. Much more needs to be done to mitigate these internal threats. Anyone with children currently in our schools should be as shocked and terrified as I was to learn of this information. I'll cut down my comments about, because Tracy spoke to it, about the comments about if you don't like it, you can leave. That has been said in these meetings and in meetings of similar venues. The only thing I would care to add to that is for those that can't afford to remove their children and pay for a private school, are you suggesting that the towns pay for this? Finally, it was said at the last school committee meeting that the comments from many of our parents and residents would lead you to believe that Dover-Sherborn schools have turned into a dump. It is disheartening to hear that the point of these comments and concerns have gone entirely unheard. These concerns are not about the tried and true academic curriculum that has earned Dover-Sherborn its reputation for academic excellence. Rather, they are in direct reference to specific additions and changes to the curriculum. The school committee mantra of diversity, equity, and inclusion has taken things way too far. If you are truly invested in the goal to ensure all of our children feel psychologically safe while in school, then you will take action to address and reverse the direction you're heading. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Are there other? Yep. Hi, sir.
My name is Mark Sennett. I'm 75 Russet Hill Road, Sherborn. I'm also a graduate of Dover-Sherborn. Thanks for letting me speak today. So diversity, equity, and inclusion, I believe in it. I think it's very important. I do more than believe in it in my consulting work. I work with lenders and government agencies on affordable housing and fair housing. I think it's part of education, especially in this affluent, mostly white suburb. I especially love our Metco program. I was here in 1968 when our neighbor, Skid Olson, introduced it. It was great then, and it is great now. Having said that, I'm also concerned about what can happen when DEI goes overboard. Was a student really told, quote, "I can't wait till we cancel this white Christian culture"? I hope not. Maybe it's just an ugly rumor. But this sentiment, that sentiment, is the kind of thing that unfortunately can happen when DEI runs off track. And it can run off track, even at Stanford Law School. Maybe you heard about it. A conservative judge came to speak, and what can only be described as a intolerant, progressive mob shouted him down. it got ugly. The assistant dean for DEI got up to speak, hoping everything would calm down. What she said instead was, "I'm glad this is happening." This is all factual, it's all, you can look it up. So this is DEI gone rogue. That's an example of it. In the end, the head of the law school, Jenny Martinez, took action. She fired the assistant dean of DEI. She made all the administrators and students were required to take some educational classes on what the First Amendment is and how to balance it with DEI. She wrote an amazing letter. I have it, and I'm going to leave it with you. It's unbelievable. It's such a perfect balance. So my message is this, and I think I'm hearing it from others. You should not assume that those who are here concerned about our school ranking in decline are bigots or against DEI. That's not the case. At a previous meeting last week, one of the members here said there was a false dichotomy, that the decline in ranking, you can't say it's caused by too much focus on DEI. That may be true, hard to prove. Either way, it's besides the point. What is the point? I ask that you need to listen to all voices, and I think there's a sense that you're not. So I hope you hear that. That's what I'm hearing. Also, the focus should be on the decline in the school's reputation. This is as much a taxpayer issue as much as anything else, especially in Sherborn, where property taxes can be 40% higher than in Dover. The great reputation the schools have always had has made the difference. In my sense, Sherborn can't afford to see the schools decline. It's a taxpayer issue. Otherwise, maybe they already have, parents will start voting with their feet. And not because of DEI programs, but because the DS schools are not what they used to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Other comments?
If there's no one else, I think it's right.
Yep. Okay, yep. Yes, ma'am.
Doreen and Francois from 99 Walpole. Our 6-year-old brings home a kid's guide to gender identity. We ask her, bring home a book about animals next time. She brings home Mary Wears Pink. Joe wears pink or something along those lines. And Joe likes pink and Mary wears what she wants. There were no books about animals, she tells us, in the school library. Our 5-year-old, a couple of weeks ago, announced at a dinner table, "Mommy, do you know what?" You know how 5-year-olds can be. "What?" I tell her. "Kids don't really know if they're girls or boys until they grow up." Really? Where'd you learn that? At school. We're in a loss. What do we do now? Do we move? We vote with our feet. It's not an easy decision. Now, before some of you say, good riddance, let us remember that Francois is a founding member of the Ronald McDonald Foundation in Canada. He is one of the founders of 10,000 Villages, and he served as a vice chairman of PBS for many years. He was a director of non-profit organizations, too many to count here. For his immense contribution to community, he was awarded the Queen Elizabeth Jubilee Medal and knighted to the Order of St. George. This is hardly a radical right rap sheet. Francois and I did not inherit a trust fund. We worked hard all our lives to provide for ourselves, our community, and now our children. Key to our success: science, math, classic literature, impeccable penmanship. And we want our children to grow up in an environment that values academic excellence which it sounds like Dover-Sherborn schools no longer do.
Thank you. Other community comments? Hi.
Go ahead. My name is Julie Chakrabarti. I live at 7 Juniper Lane in Dover. I don't have anything prepared like many people here tonight, so I'm going to keep it really brief. And I just wanted to offer a counterpoint view to some of the things that I've heard here tonight. My husband Kajla and I have 2 daughters in Dover-Sherborn schools. They are a junior and a senior. And we are thrilled with the school district. We are thrilled with the efforts, the DE&I efforts that are happening in the schools. Our girls are thrilled with all of it. They're doing really well. We don't feel that, our girls have been in Dover-Sherborn from kindergarten through now 11th and 12th grades. We don't feel that the education has declined over the years. If anything, the kinds of conversations that we overhear our kids having are the kinds of conversations we had in college. The ways that their classes and their teachers have expanded their minds to think at such a young age has been nothing short of impressive to us. So I think you all are doing a great job, and we are super happy with what we're seeing in Dover-Sherborn, and I just wanted to offer that counterpoint.
Thank you, Ms. Chatterpathy. Yep.
So again, I can also plan to speak anything either when I'm here, and I'm hearing about, I guess, my comments.
Can you say your name and your
Kansas
address?
100 Pine Street. I'm hearing, about my comments of last week. I guess it's caused some more. Anyway, I just want to say again, I applaud the school. I applaud it because whether we like it or not, there are homes that are 2 mommy homes, 2 daddy homes. There are kids that are going to be in the school system that are transgender, that they're going to, that identify differently to the norm. And I think it's really important in order for these children to be accepted, and in order for their family to be accepted and not questioned, that our children learn about them in school. Because again, education is the key to acceptance. And I again stand by my words, and I again applaud you. I wish there were more, because there are more of us than you know. I just wish people would show up to these meetings and voice the same opinion, because we did vote all of you in. And we voted the DEI program into the school system. I do understand that, people don't have the means to pull their kid out. What I'm saying is that the majority of us agree it is what the school system's curriculum is. We voted on it, and if you disagree, that unfortunately you have to go along. You can voice your opinions, but this is what the majority of us voted for, and this is why it's in the curriculum. And that's my statement. And I still stand by it, and I still thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have other public comments? Hi, sir.
Hi, good evening. Cosmo Chatterpathy, 7 Juniper Lane, Dover. I'll keep this very short. I just want to express my gratitude for all the work that you have done and continue to do for the community. I feel that DEI, what we say about DEI and how we implement it here at DS speaks volumes about our values and the values that we want to push on to our children and have them live and embody. And the efforts that I've seen here at DS, I think are wonderful and teach our kids about respect and having an open mind and being able to understand people's different lived experiences and to approach the world from a place of curiosity and acceptance. And what I want to also say is that a recent episode or incident involving a swastika being drawn on a student's car, I believe it was, is an indication that more needs to be done in this area and not less. So I applaud the efforts that the school district has undertaken in the DEI space, and wish that it would continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone, I didn't mean to be ignoring the Zoom. Is there anyone on the Zoom who's planning to or hoping to make a public comment? Okay. Any other further public comments? All right. With that, public comment is closed, and we're going to begin our business tonight. So we begin tonight with the superintendent's update.
So my update will be very brief, given that I had a very long update last week. So first and foremost, I just want to thank the town of Dover, the taxpayers, our leaders, the warrant committee, Dawn, and all of you for leading us through the budget process. Our budget was approved last night in Dover, so now we have budgets for both Sherborn and Dover to move us forward into September of 2023 and a new school year. So that's very exciting, and thank you for all of your efforts. The other piece is that there'll be my newsletter going out later this week, which will have lots of updates for the community. In it, I just want to highlight, there'll be a reminder about the May 8th safety presentation for parents about our lockdown drills and trying to train our students to internalize some of the strategies that unfortunately they might use in any venue and at any point in their lives. The calendar committee will be launching to look at our calendar for September of 24, and what that might entail. The early release days for next year have been set, so that'll be important to get those on everybody's calendar so they can plan accordingly. My entry plan, which I presented last week, is in there. I encourage everybody to read it. It talks very much about academic excellence and our vision around teaching and learning moving forward. I believe it's reflective of everyone's comments and gives you a better idea of how, although DEI has been the focus of our conversation this year, in full transparency coming out of the equity audit, that there is a much larger vision around academic excellence in the core subject areas and supporting students' growth in whatever path they choose moving forward. So please read that from page 1 through the end of page 10, because I think you'll get a bigger sense and better sense of who we are as a community, what we stand for, what our aims are, and really how DEI is woven into what we do in terms of the critical thinking skills, the creative skills, the collaborative skills. Somebody said curiosity and kindness, all woven through our ideals founded in the academics and the core subject areas. So please read that as it comes out. And last but not least, a reminder that it's Teacher Appreciation Time. Some schools are celebrating this week, some schools are celebrating next week. As we know, our educators and everybody in the system works very hard in support of our kids. So if you have a chance to even just send a quick note or an email, it'll be much appreciated and get us through the finish line of June 16th.
Yes, good to give teachers love. I want to echo your thanks to the community, particularly those who sit on all of the different town budget boards. Last night, as a Dover resident, with a number of us attended the Dover town meeting, and both my husband and I walked away feeling so appreciative and trusting all of the hundreds of volunteers who put so much work into putting our budgets together, into vetting our budgets. I think he, spends a little bit less attention than I do on these things. And he said to me, May, when I read the warrant book, there were like things and line items that I was like, why did they want that? I had so many questions. And then we'd get to the presentation. And in fact, whatever organization or whatever committee was charged with vetting out that situation had done hundreds of hours, sometimes even getting underneath tractors to inspect them, to make sure that our tax dollars are being carefully spent. And I just want to take a minute to publicly thank all of, obviously, our team in the education space that puts these budgets together, but then all of the other groups that take a look at it and kind of push us and help us to think differently maybe about some things. So just with great appreciation, living in a small town, it's and particularly an affluent town, you see there's a really, really small piece of the pie that comes from the state or even grant funding. As I think some of our commenters mentioned tonight, we are, responsible for one another, and we really appreciate all of the taxpayers, but also all the various boards that put hours and hours into putting our budget together. So thank you very much. Sorry, go on. I was like extremely overwhelmed and grateful last night.
Yes.
Yes.
It was a good evening.
All right. Warrant report, right?
Yep.
So you have the warrants for approved since your last meeting for your review. And again, I always thank Mark for coming in and signing. Actually, I brought him to you last week. So
good, thank you.
I'm moving on to your financial report for the month. So, the last time we met was in March. So you saw financials as of February 28th. So the financials in your packet this evening are as of April 30th. Hard to believe there's only 2 months left in this fiscal year. It's coming much too quickly for me to sort of be able to step back and sort of look at everything. But we did a little bit of that, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. So remember, the report is sort of a running report with only bold being the new information. So just looking at revenues, we are now in sort of spring season for athletics. So we are able to see that it looks like we are going to have sort of a negative variance for athletics. We looked at it briefly, and I want to look at it a little closer. I think what we're seeing is there's actually more families. If you remember, we have a family cap. So it looks to me like we're having the same number of participants, but we're hitting the family cap more. And we also are having more fees waived for families in need. So just that question is always asked about, do we do that? Yes, we do. At varying degrees. So I do want to let the school committee know that we do never prohibit anyone from participating in athletics, and therefore we're seeing a little bit of that hit in our numbers. So we've already budgeted for fiscal year 24, right? So we'll take this data. We've also had been holding sort of steady because we didn't know what the post-COVID impact was and if we were going to get back to where we were. So participation-wise, we're back to where we were. The budget's built on about 850 athletes. We had close to that signed up. And so again, it's just looking at how the numbers shake out. So I just wanted to highlight that for you, as well as just looking at Chapter 70. We've been carrying a small balance. It got a little bit bigger when we looked. So they do a January 1st census to see where students are. I dug in just to see, I think I'm always curious about where we have people. So we actually have 2 students in virtual schools, and with varying price tags. So that the $16,000 you're seeing is based on the fact that we had school choice that wasn't on our cherry sheets that we find out later. So it is interesting to see where students go, but that's basically that variance is based on 2 of our students who go to virtual schools, who then obviously we're assessed the cost for that.
Okay.
Other than that, we're just like printing money at the bank. I love looking at our interest.
You mean with the interest rates? Like we're not actually doing that, right? So, okay.
Interest rates. Look at that. We're looking at almost a $90,000 variance in interest. And you remember we used to always be like in the 40s. We always budget 20 because you never know. There were 2 years we didn't even make 20. Right. So this is great news on our part. And so I credit our treasurer for being savvy in where we invest our money, and really watching our cash flow closely so that we can maximize that. So that piece that we picked up this year is actually some of the E&D that was used for your fiscal year 24 budget. So think about it. We didn't know we were going to get it, but we are attributing it to the town's reduction in their assessment for next year. So that's sort of how that works if you think about it that way. On the expenditure side, I don't think there was really much to say. All the stipends have now been recorded. I'll just note we talked about the interim athletic trainer. So if you go and look at athletics, you're going to see like a negative $40,000 balance. Well, there's your athletic trainer that we put up in salary. So that's playing out. You'll see a large negative variance for substitutes. We have had a lot of long-term substitutes this year. But if you look at your salary line items, you're going to see positive variances. And so that's helped offset. So even though it looks like it's a huge negative number, if you look at your positive variances in your salary accounts, it actually nets, and we're still positive in that respect. And then I just wanted to highlight too that we're continuing to look at our healthcare numbers, and at this point we have upped our current projection for our contribution to the OPEB from $200,000 that we reported back in March up to $225,000. So we'll see if that holds steady, and then we make that contribution in a one-time transfer in June. So that's good news on that point. Any questions on the revenue or status of appropriations on the expenditure side? Okay. So you also have in your packet the March 31st special revenue and revolving funds. Just a couple of highlights on that sheet that I just want to point out. When we talk a little bit later sort of about some of the, let's say the bleacher project in particular, some of the funding sources we're looking at are on this page. So if you look at your athletic revolving fund, we have about $180,000 balance in there. And we also have the building fund of approximately $130,000. Another fund that we'll be talking about in June, if you look at cafeteria, which is our food service, I don't know if you recall, but when we closed for COVID and we continued to pay all of our employees, we actually basically wiped out our fund balance. So it's amazing to see what we've been able to build up, primarily due to universally free lunch for everyone and the participation that we've been seeing. And with that, there are some needed improvements in the cafeteria, which I will be bringing those to you from Janelle in June. There's some pieces of equipment we want to invest in, and some enhancements to the kitchen itself that we now have the funds. And again, the food service funds are there to be reinvested back into the food service program. So we're really excited that we have that opportunity to do that. So we'll hear more about that in June. I think that is my main points on the special revenue and revolving funds.
Yeah.
You have your continued it's no new information on the capital project update for fiscal year 23. What is new is 24. As Beth mentioned last night when I wrote this report, I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but we do now have both towns approved your capital requests for the air handlers on the high school. And so that we're still moving along with a little bit of the investigation standpoint, just to make sure that we can move forward with the full electrification, and then getting our bids ready so that we can get that. Our plan, working with the engineer, is probably getting those bids out by the 1st of August so that we can secure that bid and get the items ordered so they're here in time for the installation in fiscal year summer of 25. The other two planned projects that we'll be bringing forward to the committee in June requesting use of E&D, is just to refresh your memory, is the classroom and hallway floors in the high school math wing and the renovation of the 2 student restrooms in Lindquist. We were carrying that on your capital plan at an estimated cost of $60,000. Now that we've actually gone and got all of our quotes, so we did not to exceed, we're able to bring that down to $30,000. Excited about that. Things weren't as expensive as we thought, and things like the partitions are in good enough shape that we're not going to replace those. So that was still a little bit of the work we were doing. We're excited to obviously give those bathrooms a facelift, but take us to the next level in our goal for sustainability. In that there will be hands-free faucets for water conservation, the hands-free, the dryer, so no paper towels. I'm super psyched about that. And again, we talked about just making all of our bathrooms more universally accessible. So in the male bathroom, we will actually be putting partitions around in those so that every stall would be private. And that gives us a little more versatility with those bathrooms. So that's something that we're also doing. And again, the biggest piece in there is all new tile floor and fresh paint. So we're looking forward to doing that. The other project that we've been talking about, and I put a little more information for you in your report, obviously, is the complete replacement of the bleachers and the press box. So since we last met, I have been able to work with a designer who's sort of given me a prototype of a design bid construction phase contract. So we had a sense of how much that was going to be. They were also able to give us a sort of a project cost. So they were able to reach out and get a bid from a vendor And because at this point we really didn't know what we were looking at dollar-wise. And so the stands and the press box and the design fee and all those services together, excluding what we may need to do for the walkway, a little bit of the foundation work if we need to, and we're still working on the restroom facility issue, is about $400,000. And so we're adding the extra 100 and saying it's about a $500,000 project right now, because actually the $400,000 does not include sort of the engineer design fee. So you've been having meetings with various stakeholders, trying to get a feel of funding sources and trying to pull this together. So we have something to bring back to you in June as far as any funds that you would need to vote in your E&D to help us get this project off the ground. So we're working as quickly as we can on this. Our goal is to get the RFP out for the design services in the next 2 weeks. That starts the whole process, but we couldn't do that until we did this beginning phase, because you have to know where you're going until you can start the race. So we're excited to get it going. And again, it's on as fast of a track as we can do it. But with anything, as you know, in municipality world, there's just certain procurement protocols that you have to follow. It's not as easy as just going and saying, please purchase this and come install it. So we are working as quickly as we can on that.
Oops. Sorry about that.
Other than that, the only other thing I want to mention is that our audit is almost 98% complete, and we will be presenting it in June. Unfortunately, our treasurer is going to be out of town, and he'll prepare a memo though, but our auditors will be here hopefully. But we're happy to be able to finally present that. I will say all the auditors, all the auditing firms are extremely overworked right now, mainly if you think about all the grants and the extra, as I told you, we had to do the single federal audit. They are just swamped. In fact, DESE gave them an extension on the end of the year compliance reports because of the outcry from the audit firms about the workload. So I think we are still ahead of the game, that you guys are going to get your financials in June. But we're looking forward to being able to present fiscal year 22 before 23 is over.
That's a nice goal. Thank you so much. Thank you for the update on all the capital projects. I'm very excited again that the town meetings are over and we're able to plow forward with them. And specifically with the bleachers, just in case folks who are not usually, watching are wondering, why is that such an important thing? I think that it is part of sort of the larger, when we say DEI, our bleachers are currently not handicapped accessible. The whole bleachers, you kind of have to sit off to the side. And for kids who are in wheelchairs, for families who have mobility issues, that's been a real issue. And on top of that, some of them, especially the ones kind of at the top, are kind of even sort of vaguely unsafe. They're getting a little rickety. So wanting to make sure that when we say everyone can participate, that we really mean everyone can participate. We've been able to, and thank you so much to Beth and Dawn for all your work, digging in and sort of fast tracking that and sort of understanding, that's a big priority for us to make sure everyone can be part of our community that way. So thank you.
Can I go back? I forgot to just mention on the special revenue revolving funds, the health grant. So we actually were very fortunate to, we traditionally have gotten a $3,000 health grant that has paid for part of our nurse leader stipend. Back when their nurse leader stipend even started, we were getting that $3,000. So it's been $3,000, $3,000, $3,000, $3,000. And then COVID actually made that grant start going up. I think they have a lot of ARP, ESSER money, and so they are giving back more money. So this year we got $30,000, and I just wanted to highlight that a little bit. And I need to do it at all three schools, because the grant that we manage here at the region actually covers all three of our districts. And so our nurses have been able to go and really upgrade their offices. Pine Hill actually got new cots. One thing that made me think about this when the students were talking about the CPR is that we did buy a new AED machine for the nurse's office in the high school, so it was readily accessible there. And the other great thing, as I was mentioning to Maggie before the meeting started, part of the grant they're using for training for all of our nurses to be sort of trainer for CPR. And so they're going through that higher level of training to be able to provide training. So it sort of is sinking in quite nicely. We've purchased brand new hearing machines, blood pressure machines. They've all purchased field trip backpacks with supplies.
Oh, that's great.
So it's been a little bit of been like winning the lottery a little bit for the nurses, but they I have to applaud Megan Smith. They've worked together as a team and have really thoughtfully thought about what they need, and we won't get this much again, but it's great to be able to take that opportunity. I don't think I quite highlighted it, but the students speaking tonight had a couple of things I wanted to highlight that actually is like making sense with everything that's going on.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think, it's been a lot of conversation tonight around health. And I think that it is a huge priority, and being able to equip our nurses to be health educators as well as nurse teachers is a big thing. Yes.
I had a question.
Please. I'm sorry I didn't turn around in time.
It's really okay. Two really minor things. Did I understand this to say that it's costing us only $30,000 for the bathroom renovation?
Yes. For the two small ones.
Can I get the name of the contractor?
We're maintaining the toilets we're actually keeping, but the sinks and the faucets we're replacing. And if you think about it, they are small bathrooms.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
And the other thing, on a slightly more serious note, the OPEB. The reason we're kicking in the extra $25,000, that money is coming from the healthcare
savings.
Still
Right.
From the healthcare savings.
Exactly. So we're not. We always budget within. We always stick within that because we have to. Because we tell the towns, right? So what we don't do on an annual basis is take when we do our budget. We don't necessarily take the current year retirees and put them into the retirees. So there is savings in the actives that are attributed to retirees that I'm actually picking up. And it's coupling with the money that we have in the retiree line item. So we're totally making use of any savings from the retirees that is going into OPEB.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we done with financial report?
Yes.
Okay. Any other further questions on finances?
Thank you.
All right. That moves us, and just typically in this month, for folks who follow along monthly, we have the first read of the high school handbook and the program of studies, and we all sort of agreed. I think we spoke about delaying that a little bit because we're going to have 2 meetings in June, so we'll do first and second read of those, mostly because it sort of dovetails in with then being able to do the
strategic plan.
Yes, the strategic plan, and then we will do the second read of one of those two things in September, right?
Yes, the school improvement plans, because it'll be based on the district improvement plan, which is based on the strategic plan, which just got started last week.
So, doing all of that, getting that done starting in May, there were some horses being put before carts, so that's where that went. I don't want you to think that we've, forgotten to do those. Those are important things. All right, so we're moving on to the consent agenda. In your packet is a list of gifts that we have received. Well, actually, we're going to be approving the minutes of March 7th, so if you had a chance to look those through and if there are any changes or corrections. And then taking a look at the gifts received. Is this the whole year? Do we do this every month, or do we do this?
You do it every month as they come in. So I didn't want to scare you that these are actually volunteer coaches, but for football, it's a little bit different.
Memo.
Okay, there's a memo attached to it. Yes. Okay, sorry.
Yes. It's actually it's a gift from the Gridiron for a couple of volunteer football coaches. So that won't go away with what we did because the Gridiron is. It's not our parents, it's not our football players raising the money, it's an outside organization.
That gives them
additional support
Okay.
which benefits the team. So I wanted to clarify that so that no one felt like we were going against what we were trying to do when we added all the coaches, volunteer coaches, into the Appendix C last year.
I understand.
And hopefully our families have seen that impact.
Yep.
This year.
And then there are other additional gifts, just as an FYI, in our packet as well.
That
right?
is just
and that's just the annual update.
That's just
okay.
the quarterly.
Okay.
Your quarterly update that shows you the breakup.
Yep.
By class, by like restriction of your miscellaneous gifts that is on your main report.
Gotcha.
See page 2 for miscellaneous gifts. That's just the detail.
Yes. And so many thank yous to the many organizations that participate and donate to help our schools do all the amazing things that they do. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second? Second.
Go ahead, Mark.
No, I worry about always jinxing. Sure, second. Then I'll zip for the rest of the night. Okay?
Excuse me. Jinxing. That's funny. You don't hear that every day. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Is there any discussion about the consent agenda? No. Okay. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, 5-1 to 0. Motion passes. And then just also at the end of your packet are communications, the minutes from prior Dover and Sherborn School Committee, and then detailed reports from both the high school principal and the middle school principal about the goings-on at the middle and high school, and it was really enjoyable to read them, and I'm really appreciative. Did you have some?
Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all. Just very appreciative to both Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Smith and to their faculty for all of the very detailed updates that they send us each month.
I agree, and I do love reading about all the stuff going on. I have a question, and it doesn't need an answer now because I know Mr. Lawrence wasn't able to join us, but are we going to hear more about the possible middle school schedule changes?
Yes.
Just curious about that.
Yes, so they have a steering committee looking at the possible middle school changes. They are also cognizant of the cadence of the school year and how we're now into a period of the school year where decisions have to be made about student groupings, about who's teaching what. And so the faculty is continuing to work through that and to decide whether this is going to be a schedule that's launched in September of 23 or September of 24. So when Mr. Lawrence is here next month with his school improvement plan and update on the handbooks, I'm sure he'd be happy to tell you all the details.
That's great. I'd love it to be able to ask him about that.
Yeah.
Great. And then I don't think we meet again before graduation, do we?
Oh,
No,
June 6th.
June 6th
Yes.
is after.
Right. So graduation is June?
That Thursday, the 1st?
The 1st, right? So just before, since this will be our last meeting, wanted to wish good luck to all of our graduates of the class of 2023 who will be graduating on Thursday evening, June 1st. We wish them all the best, and I've been very excited to hear all the different stories about the exciting places that they are all going after graduation. So that will be here, weather permitting, on the Nora Cyril Field, and it's a great community event. I know we attended it for years before we ever had kids graduating, so a lot of folks come and just kind of hang out, and it's a real nice celebration. So if you have that day free, please come and join us. Unless it rains, then don't come.
There's no room for you.
Oh, it's
Friday
next day?
night.
Okay, they're not doing it in the, so that's better. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not up on the new things. So yes, then come on Friday night, even better. Before we adjourn, I do want to take a point of privilege to just say a thank you to our departing member, Lynn Collins, who unfortunately is not here tonight because she is attending her own child's senior recital as he prepares to graduate from high school in the coming weeks. If he watches this, I hope you've broken a leg, Aiden, your show. Lynn has served on the regional school committee for the past 5 years, and during that time, she has been a tireless advocate for our students, staff, and families. As an employment attorney, Lynn brought to the committee her deep understanding of employment law, as well as human resources regulations and best practice to the committee. As a member and leader of multiple negotiation teams, Lynn has earned the reputation of being a fair, firm, straight shooter. She has been quick to understand the issues and become a valued colleague on both sides of the table. Lynn also has a knowledge and understanding of the power and the limits of public policy and the school committee's role in schools' governance. She has used this expertise to help us review and revise our policies that support students and staff as an active member of the policy subcommittee. Her expert analysis and writing skills have been deeply valued in the policy subcommittee and appreciated by each of us at the region. Lynn is steadfast in her commitment to do what is right. She believes that by supporting all students, everyone will become better. She's worked tirelessly to ensure that all students have access to a quality education and that we take a hard look at practices that create barriers to learning and belonging wherever they might arise. Lynn also has a personal and professional understanding of the complex issue of race in our schools, workplaces, and community life. She's used her knowledge and experience to help us create a more inclusive and welcoming school community, both in her work on DS Aid, in her conversations with educators and district leaders, and in her reflection and perspective on many of the issues we have faced over the past 5 years. Lynn has impeccable integrity. She's honest, fair, and forthright in all her endeavors. She's willing to do the hard work, always willing to roll up her sleeves and get things done. She earned the universal respect of faculty leadership and all who work with her. It is our great loss that Ms. Collins is coming to the end of her term on the Regional School Committee. She will be sorely missed as a committee woman, colleague, thought partner, and friend. Lynn, we're sorry you're not with us tonight. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors and hope that you will think of us fondly on future Tuesday nights. Thank you. So, you're welcome. I hope that I spoke fairly for all of us.
That was
You
terrific.
did. The only thing I can add to that is that she has and is continuing to lead us in the teacher negotiations beautifully, and I'm so grateful that she's done that.
We are very fortunate to have her at that table. All right. With that, we've come to adjournment. It is, I can't even read a real watch anymore. It is 7:38.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Can I
Yes.
comment before
Oh, yes.
we
No,
adjourn? I'm
absolutely.
sorry.
Yes. Yes, please.
So I just wanted to, I know all the CPR folks, most have left except for Patty, to echo the sentiment in keeping our students and staff and everyone around us safe to the best that we can. I just want to raise again my personal, but also the wishes of SPAN-DS that we might be able to revisit how we do our drug and alcohol education with our high school students. It's part of the freshman curriculum for everyone, but it's not necessarily revisited as they get older. And I just think in keeping with that theme,
I think one of our speakers tonight also spoke to that.
Yes.
I think that is, definitely top of mind for folks.
Yes, so I just want to keep that thought in the mix and seem to fit in with the
little bit of a re-examination of how we do health.
Exactly.
And maybe we love options and voice and choice, and also maybe there's some things we would like to John to think about us asking to require. All right. Well, it's nice that we have this extra month for him to think about that.
I'll make sure our principals are ready in June.
Yes. All right. Thank you. And I'm sorry that we didn't. We usually have an item on here for future agenda items, and somehow it was left off. All right. Well, now I get to read my watch again, so this is great.
Sorry.
It's 7:40. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Judy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Angie. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic meeting adjourned at 7:40 p.m. Thank you, everyone.